Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Sandra Turner, founder and host of the G&T Sessions podcast. And today we have a legend, I would say, a legend in the podcasting and media space. And also, quite sneakily, he told me that he was actually in the software industry before all this as well, which is even more fascinating, especially with the person he used to work with, which we'll get onto later. Mr. MS, yeah. But anyway, welcome, Sam Sethi.
Hello, thank you.
Sam has got, actually, for people that are not watching this on YouTube, but will probably listen to it on Apple Podcast or Spotify, he's probably got the best gear out. And I'm here sat with my wired kind of AirPods, or what they're called. I don't think they're called AirPods, are they? They're called
just wired mic.
Air cans. Yeah. So it doesn't sound like very Apple when you say air cans. Yeah, but so welcome, Sam. Thank you for being on the show. It's brilliant to have you here. I know we've been talking on and off for many, many years, and it's just absolute honor to have you on the show, actually.
No, thank you.
I mean, what particularly inspired me, because I know it's all about timing as well also, is you're working on something really, really funky, I think, funky and interesting, that actually more people should know about. And obviously, you know, if I can make a little contribution by putting on the G&T sessions, because it's about growth and technology. G&T with gifted and talented people, and there's oozes of gifts and talents coming from the Sethi side of this, not from the Turner side of this thing. It's, you know.
Well, we'll see. Yeah,
we'll see what triggers from the conversation. So I suppose I know some podcast hosts they kind of like do this kind of long, you know, introduction. But Sam was born and he went to high school. But what I usually do is actually ask the guests to introduce themselves, because then they can focus on the bits that they want to explain. Yeah, I suppose over to you, Sam. How would you explain yourself to the audience that may be listening to this episode today?
A veteran of IT.
Veteran?
Yeah. I'm the grand old age of nearly 60. I mean, I know it doesn't look it. Black don't crack, but... But yeah, been around this scene for a while. After my days in the army, I joined IT. So,
are you in the army?
Oh, right. I was an army officer, in the Paris for 5 years. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, one of the many weird things I've done in my life.
That's a good thing.
Yeah. So got into an unknown company at the time called Microsoft. It had 20 or 30 staff over in Winnersh Triangle, if anyone knows the Reading area. And yeah, you know, started off as a systems engineer, moved out of Microsoft a few years later into another unknown little startup called Netscape, you know, the web browser company.
Mark Andreessen.
Yes. He himself. And saw the first iterations of the web way back. You know, we're talking in the mid-90s. I had a fun, embarrassing moment. We were hosting a lunch for Netscape, and I was sat next to a guy called Tim Berners-Lee. And my question to Tim Berners-Lee was, so what do you do?
Okay.
Oh my God, I wish I could sit next to Tim Berners-Lee now and have a conversation with the knowledge I have. But at the time, I was a wet behind the ears.
Was he kind to you? And said, oh, you know, I'm just working on a little project that might change the world?
Yeah, he said, I came up with the idea for the web. And I went, oh, that's very nice. And literally dismissed the whole conversation. So yes, embarrassing 101, conversation with Tim Berners-Lee before he was a sir, asking, what do you do? But anyway, long story short, loved it. Saw the invention there in Netscape of the original idea behind RSS, which weirdly may come back into the conversation later on about how in the day, the idea of portals, you know, if you remember AOL, MSN, Yahoo, and Netscape had its own portal, and RSS was the mechanism of delivery for data, because if you recall, and most people our age can, it was dial-up internet. It was, you know, that horrible, oh my God, somebody don't answer the phone. Yeah. I'm on the internet, don't answer the phone. So RSS was that means of push delivery of weather, sports, and then aggregating into a portal. And what you'll see today, I think, is we're going full circle, but we'll come back to that later. But anyway, bit of Netscape, then joined a company called Gateway Computers and built their online e-commerce business. Joined another company called MicroStrategy, Michael Saylor, the world's biggest holder of Bitcoin today. So I was their worldwide marketing director. So anyway, long story.
Are they the biggest holder of Bitcoin now?
Yeah, Michael is. Yeah, MicroStrategy are. Yeah.
Wow.
And then, and there's some great stories about Michael. He's a maverick. I then got into a internet incubator called CMGI out of Boston. They owned Alta Vista, Turome, Navio. So again, anyone going way back in time will remember all this. Anyone who's sub-30 is like yawning their head off right now going, come on, Grandad, get to the interesting part.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. I've never heard of that.
Yeah, and then helped a certain Michael Arrington start TechCrunch here in Europe, and then got involved in several of my own startups. So started, I think I'm on a record of 3 success, 1 failure, and I'm on to another one now. Hopefully that's a success and not a failure. So the journey's been interesting. It's been a long journey of corporate and startup and seeing the evolution of the web. Whether you want to call today Web 3.0, but, Web 1.0, Web 2.0, the rise of, evaluations, crazy, if you remember, Pets Are Us and, and .com and whatever.
Yeah, you mean the .com boom and bust around 2000, 2001, yeah.
Yeah, and some people, walked away with millions and others walked away with nothing. Web 2.0 was the aggregation of everything to the center. So against what I think the web's all about. So you've got Facebook, Twitter, everything went to the center, Google. And I think in Web 3.0, for want of a better term, we're seeing decentralization again. But we can go on and talk about that later.
Well, it's that toggle, isn't it? It's like it happens in organizations as well, isn't it? About toggling from central control, decentralized empowerment. Yeah, interesting. Wow, I didn't realize that. So you ex-army. Don't buy your beds. and then you go into software, and then you've been in me. So that's interesting about TechCrunch as well, isn't it? I mean, that's another legend. You see, you've been involved in some very legendary organizations. Obviously, not, and working with Michael Saylor. I mean, I know that MicroStrategy when they were very early before pre-Bitcoin, and.
Yes.
They were. I remember he's quite funny because he always used to say, because everybody else got gobbled up. IBM bought Cognos and SAP bought Business Objects, and it was I was working in that area when I was at SAP, and the analytics and data area. And I remember he proudly would say, "We are the only independent BI company left in the whole universe."
Yeah, look, Michael Saylor,
which is a great great positioning because it was true,
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you one story about Michael Saylor that just describes what he's like. So when he was growing MicroStrategy, would hire a cruise liner between Florida and go around the Caribbean. Year 1, before I joined, he had a third of the boat. Year 2, before I joined, he had half the boat. The year I joined, he had the whole boat. And in the day before the loophole was closed, he could actually write it all off as a tax incentive break, whatever the word is, because he would do lectures in the ballroom to the whole staff in between the islands. So he flew me over, and it was literally after my interview with him and a guy called Sanjay Bansal, who was really the brains behind MicroStrategy. And I flew over, landed, got on the boat, and Michael just said, "Get in your swimming trunks, I'm going to introduce you to your team." And I got into a hot tub with 6 people, and that was my team. And it was like, "Hi, nice to meet you, semi-naked, first time we've ever met each other." That's really useful. But yeah, so Michael Saylor's...
It was a unique culture.
Oh, amazing. I mean, he used to fly all the parents over twice a year to Washington and then do a barbecue. And then I had my dad come over with me. And for 3 hours, Michael Saylor lectured the parents on what roll-up was and what online analytical processing is. My dad's looking at me going, God, what the hell am I doing here? And I'm going, I have no idea either what you're doing here. But
he's telling what a drill down and a drill through was.
He was, I mean, seriously, 3 hours. My dad, I think, was ready to cut his wrists at the end of it. But so Michael Saylor, the maverick that he is, I mean, he took the $15 million excess profit that they had sat in bank and said, look, instead of buyback of shares, let me go and buy Bitcoin. And the board agreed. I mean, they didn't have to. And he rode that wave. Now, that's turned out to be more value to MicroStrategy than any of the software they've ever developed or anything they do currently.
I mean, I'm not analysing it. And I'm going slightly off topic about what your journey's about, but just a quick question. Is their revenue in traditional software declining? Is that right?
Yeah, I would have thought so. I mean,
but their market cap is just like astronomical, isn't it now? So it's huge.
Yeah, because if you look at the cap table and you look at their balance sheet, I mean, holding the Bitcoin amount that they do means that they're very, very valuable as a company. So anyone wanting to buy them would have to buy out the whole of the reserves. So yeah, I don't think they're an acquisition by anybody.
Wow. Well, it's interesting. So I think if you watch the news, it's obviously a blueprint that a number of other corporates are looking at as well.
Well, actually, it was on the back of a Biden announcement that they were going to prevent or stop the buyback to inflate the share price. So most corporate execs were getting their stocks and shares were underwater, right? Microsoft famously had that problem under Steve Ballmer. And so what they worked out was that if they took excess profit, instead of putting that back into R&D, they took it and bought shares and inflated the price, then the execs would stick around because the stock options would have some value going forward. Biden announced that they were going to close that loophole. I don't think it ever did get closed, but that was the trigger for Michael Saylor to say, well, actually, buybacks are not going to be a way forward for us, so let's go and look at another way of doing it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a crazy world these days. You never know what's going to happen next. But I suppose also that's an interesting place about where there's a crossover between your background and some of the things you're doing with your new, I don't know if you call it a startup or a new venture or new play school or playground that you're playing in. I don't know what you describe it
Calling it a value exchange now.
Okay.
I'll explain that if you want, but yeah, it's called a value exchange. We don't call it a marketplace. We don't call it a platform. So, okay, look, it's called TrueFans, truefans.fm. It's in all the app stores as well as a PWA. The goal originally was to just produce a podcasting app, a listening app. And I was not really doing that as a full-time thing. I just started a radio station. I built a radio station just with 40 presenters, and it was just something I was doing. And podcasting was part of it. And I decided
like you do, you say, oh, let's just create a radio station.
Yeah, it was called River Radio. Yeah. And, that was the stuff on DAB.
Yeah, I remember it. Yeah, I remember it. Yeah.
So, look, I did that, and somebody approached me about partnering with them on a podcasting app, and I was like, okay, I'll give it a go. And then they got bored of the whole thing, and I moved on with it. And podcasting 2.0 basically was in its embryonic phase. So 1.0 podcasting was simply add an audio enclosure to an RSS feed and deliver that through Apple, Spotify, whatever. 2.0 is all about the metadata level. So it's all about providing data around the audio, nothing to do with changing the audio. So it's, who's the host of this? Well, there's a thing called the person tag. So now I can see what Andrew Turner looks like. Now I can see what his guests look like. Okay. Is there a location tag? Where's Andrew based? Where did he record it? Or what's the subject of this? And it goes on. And one of the things that was added was a micro payment wallet capability. And I, for the last 2 years, I've been pushing that rock up a hill to try and explain it to people and see if it can go mass market. And it feels very like when I was in Netscape, when I'd say to somebody, oh, it's called the web. Yep. It starts HTTP. That's a URL. ://www. And they looked at me like I was talking Swahili. And then you remember, A, if you could manage to get a browser off an AOL magazine or CompuServe. B, when you got there, it was a grey screen with flashing, blinking lights. And you went, really, Sam, this is the future of the web, is it?
You know what they look like? They look like your dad when Michael Saylor was telling him about Rollup.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was pure rubbish. And you had to say to people, yeah, stick with it. This is the future of computing and the internet and all this stuff. And I say to people, look, it's a wallet. They're called micropayments. They're just digital currencies. And yes, you can transact peer-to-peer between one wallet and the other. Oh, okay. And why would you need a micropayment? Why can't I use a fiat currency like US dollars or pounds? Because the payment providers like PayPal or Stripe take, so much money, or Apple Pay. And so you're always going through a third-party gateway and paying a fee. So if you can do peer-to-peer transactions, then, you don't have to pay a fee. And if you look at what I said about the centralized, decentralization nature of the web, the original web, if anyone remembers Napster or Skype or even the early Spotify, they were all peer-to-peer platforms, right? And then that was in Web 1.0. And Web 2.0, Facebook came along and said, no, we're going to suck everything into the center. And in 3.0, we're trying to decentralize the web again. So you're beginning to see things like Blue Sky, you begin to see Threads, you begin to see Mastodon, you're beginning to, so, you know, going away from Twitter, beginning to see the social web not being a central entity. It's a bit confusing for the mainstream because it's not, you know, fully baked out and not fully, I guess, commercialized and simplified, but it's coming. And in the same way, micropayments. Last part on this, Andrew, is, you know, in Web 2.0, in Facebook, if I gave you a like or a heart or a thumbs up or whatever it may have been, great. Take 1 million thumbs up to your bank account and see if the bank manager gives you a loan. He'll just tell you to get lost. So sentiment from the user back to the creator is nice, but it has no monetary value. And so what we've come up with is a micropayment system that allows you to take not only the sentiment, but also a micropayment. And in the aggregate, you're hoping that the number of fans to your podcast or the number of fans to your blog or whatever it may be will aggregate better than advertising. And so you can remove advertising out of the conversation and have a direct peer-to-peer relationship with your fans.
Well, you see, I'm just going to wait for this tidal wave of micropayments going to happen after this is published, this episode.
Absolutely.
It's going to be like, I'm going to be like, hold the door back.
Screaming to the wife, get the Ferrari out, we're going out.
No. But the reason why I mentioned that was because it's a bit like, it is like a crossover. It's like a fusion, isn't it, of some of the things you've done before and also the way that the world is going. Yeah, that's why I think it's such a great idea, because it's you know, the whole payment infrastructure, the commission splits. You know, when people actually look at that in detail, they go, "Oh my god!" Yeah. Well, yeah. And it's people. It's like, I won't say. Well, yeah, when I went to Tesco Bank, we used to kind of call it, let's have all our terms and conditions in very clear English and upfront and very clear, because, you know, we, you know, avoid the weasel words, we used to call it. Yeah. Yeah. Because basically people were, you know, like they have this like font of 0.6, you know, 1 point font. How you need a magnifying glass to read it.
Yeah, well, one of my favorite expressions is complexity has failed simplicity. And often, you know, terms and service are complex. And again, if your app is complex and not simple, then, you know, it's failed as well.
And what was the trigger for doing that then? Was it just your frustration with the way that the podcasting world was going? I mean, I've been doing, I mean, I'm not been doing it as long as you. I mean, I don't ask you how many episodes you've ever recorded. You know, I've probably got about, I don't know, over 200 hours of content on YouTube across my three shows that I do. You know, the podcasting is kind of like, I know that it's kind of, what do you call it? It's kind of been growing. It's, you know, it's obviously, it grows by geo. Obviously, US, I think, is the most popular.
Yeah.
Probably the maturity of that market. But then I also find that some of the, what I'll call tooling or platforms as a podcaster, are pretty primitive and not very host friendly. So I don't know if you were trying to, I don't know if that's what, because you were coming at from a perspective of a host. Were you
not
trying to
really,
help with that,
no.
or were you trying to connect the community to the host?
So the goal was to build creator portals. So going back to what I said at Netscape, the idea was that if you go to TrueFans, yes, you can see your podcast, but you can also have a blog, events, merch. I think the best example of that today is Substack. I think they've got a great example of how they build that out. You know, they've got the newsletter, they've got podcasting, they've got live podcasting, they've got merch stores. I think if you look at Patreon, I think they're doing a pretty good job as well. And it's why I think Spotify and YouTube won't be the winners. I think they're short-term winners today, Apple being another one where, you know, the lion's share of podcasting is consumed through those platforms, but they're not end destinations. You can't put your own domain there. You can't customize it. They don't offer the full gamut of services, right? And so I think what creators will eventually go back to is working out, if you look at a great website, Zeteo.com, and that's Mehdi Hassan, and I love his podcast, but I also love his articles, and I love the fact that he's got a network of other podcasters who's got Naomi Klein, you know, who wrote No Brand. I mean, you know, smart thinking. But what he did was he aggregated it under his own URL, under his own .com. And so if Substack goes away tomorrow, he's not going to lose his audience. And the worry you have is if you build your platform on YouTube and you build your platform on Spotify, I'm not saying YouTube's going away. That's stupid, right? But what if a better widget comes along that's better than YouTube? I don't know. We've all seen change in the web space. So suddenly you want to migrate. Well, how do you now move your client base? Do you say, come to the new place? Or if you've actually got your own it's like, still come to G&T. We're still here. You don't need to know the tools underneath it. It's still called G&T. And so I think the danger we've got as creators is we could become more, we're not just podcasters, we are creators, we are multifaceted, right? Audio, video, live events, live online, merch. So, I think you need to start to think longer term about owning the customer, the fan, the journey, and also the platform that you're on.
Yeah, it's a bit like creating your own real estate.
Well, becoming a publisher. I mean, I have said that live podcasting is the new radio and video is the new TV. If you look at YouTube now own 13% of all US television watching. That's huge on a big screen in the lounge. You're thinking people are watching YouTubes in their lounge as opposed to ABC or whatever other. And, Stephen Colbert is an example of a late night TV format that's become stale. The average age of the person who's watching that is 68. They're not attracting or becoming attractive for advertisers. They lost half their audience post-COVID, so they went from 4 million to 2 million. Diary of his CEO, Stephen Bartlett's announced they were getting 3 million daily, which is more than the BBC's one show. Yeah, exactly. So you start to see the numbers, right? So Stephen Bartlett with the Diary of a CEO is a publisher, is a broadcaster, bigger than some of the BBC shows, certainly bigger than all of the late night US chat show hosts. He's reaching a bigger audience every day than they are. And so suddenly...
Well, that's just based on what YouTube content he's publishing.
Yeah, and you then add to the fact that Stephen Colbert announced that... announced that, it cost 100 million to make his show. He had 200 staff and they were losing 40 million a year, etc., etc. And then you convert that to Stephen Bartlett. He's probably got a team of 20 that's highly profitable, blah, blah, blah. The cost of production is much lower. They just can't compete. And the same's happening in the radio world. Local radio is dying on its feet. Heart Global, they're just, Bauer, they're all aggregating all the local radio stations, kicking off all of the presenters, and then using that bandwidth to try and create a national radio station for advertising purposes. But local or hyper-local radio is really where it's at. I want to know what's going on my high street. I want to know what's going on locally. I don't want to know what's going on in London if I live over in Berkshire. The way
so they're missing the market completely, what the requirement is.
Yeah, but the gatekeeper, again, a bit like TV, the gatekeeper was getting a DAB or an FM license. So the 15,000 pounds a month type cost meant it was always preclusive to start a radio station, whereas now you can get a shoutcast server or an HLS server and broadcast to the web. Podcast apps can listen to it. And so suddenly everyone can be a radio station. If you wanted to take G&T and have a schedule and 10 presenters under your brand and then put out a daily show level, that's what you would do. I mean, with River Radio, I had 40 presenters doing live radio. They didn't know any better. I trained them to do radio. And then what we did was we took that content and we automatically converted that straight to Spotify, Apple as podcasts. So you could argue we were producing 40 podcasts, but just putting out the recording live, whichever way you want to look at it. And the same, I think, now with TV. The cost of transmitting a TV signal was too high, but YouTube gives it away practically for zero. So I think the world is changing rapidly around what content creators do and how they deliver content.
And do you think is there? I mean, I suppose I'm kicking myself now. I should have thought we should have done some kind of fancy combination of live stream to all these different platforms, YouTube, X, blah 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 blah. So that's that's a very fascinating angle, actually. A fascinating insight is that, because I think the thing that triggered in my mind when you were talking was this phrase that it's been out there for a while: digital campfires. Yeah, where people are congregating in and around a small cohort or community of people who are interested in just a specific topic, which is kind of like a niche topic, but they're not bothered about the mass big platforms and the mass public environments to be in.
Yeah, I mean, I've got, so last year in podcasting, my focus was on discovery, interactivity, and monetization. So how can we improve the ability to find a new podcast? How can we make it so that you can have comments back to the creator? Podcasting is a very lonely job often, So guest-based ones like this are much better because you've got interaction between the host and the guest. But if you were just talking and doing a daily podcast,
if I was just doing like a monologue kind of thing,
yeah.
It's,
and very much like radio stations, you're talking into the abyss, hoping and assuming you've got an audience, but you don't know. So interactivity in the form of comments is always great because it's an affirmation that you have an audience. So last year, discovery, interactivity, and micropayments monetization was one of my focuses. This year, though, my focus is on content, commerce, and community. So content, right, not just audio, but audio, video, live are the ways that we're looking at it. Commerce is, the new funding tag, the way that you can do recurring subscriptions, etc. And community is massive, right? Fandoms or fan-based communities, whatever word you want to pick, it goes back to your campfire analogy, right? It goes back to actually.
We could do cosplay. We could have like G&T man. Hey, yeah, I could put a cape on.
Exactly.
See, I've got green on today as well for you as well. Like I'm on corporate colours as well for my logo.
But the other thing I would say on top of that is, in terms of the way that community is very important, is you're now starting to see. So in TrueFans, one of the things we've built is a technology from the W3C that I was involved in many years ago that's come back into fashion, called activity streams. And so one of the things that all podcasting is doing, and even YouTube, is the download is dead, right? No one should ever tell you what their download numbers are. It's irrelevant. Dan Meisner at Bumpner said, a download is not a listen, and we know that. And the Apple download apocalypse that occurred a couple of years ago when they stopped doing auto downloads to the extent they did, everyone was going, oh, yes, I've got 10,000 downloads, and advertisers will willingly pay against that number. And then it was suddenly, oh, I've only got 5,000 downloads now, and advertisers, well, we'll give you half the budget we gave you before then. And it was like, oh my God. But now the core metrics that you're looking at are listen time, percent completed, and value paid. And they're the three things. And so when you look at YouTube, they talk about watch time. When you look at Spotify, Daniel Ek came out with customer lifetime value, which includes listen time. So those are the core metrics that everyone's focused on today. And when you have community, what you're looking at is, can I create value, and that value exchange between the content I produce, whether it's audio, video, live, and the value you give back to me. Now, the value you give back can be tangible, money, streaming sats, super comments, subscriptions, or intangible. I just happen
cruises. That sounds good.
Yes. More cruises. No, but the intangible stuff can be, for example, after this, I will share this podcast, right? That's an intangible value I'm giving you back. It's not a monetary value. I might go onto social media and say, oh, I was just on with Andrew Turner. You must go and listen, right? That's an intangible fan-based value back to you, not a tangible monetary value.
Yeah, but you see, I'm supposed to be a fan of you. The host is a fan of the guest here. That's what.
Well, that's the right way. Always the right way.
No, it's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I've been. It's this kind of these threads bringing the threads together, and actually being able to have a communication channel with your people that are interested in what you get the guests to come and do. So what the comment I've had is actually what people have liked is that I kind of curate all these different people on the show, and it's like quite an eclectic mix of guests, and that's because I think I've got a kind of a mission around that, because I think through that diversity, then you get you get a different point of view. It is, it's not like a straight line. It's not like a linear. But I think the thing that I get frustrated as a host is you don't know who's listening individually. You don't really have any way of interacting with them. So I kind of celebrate your strategy around what you're doing with TrueFans, because I think it's needed. Yeah, I think there's a huge need for it, and I think that's for the host connecting to their communities, whether they're big, small, big, or growing, but also the feedback. Yeah.
Yeah, well,
because it's like the only thing you can rate it on currently is I publish stuff on YouTube, and I get what one episode will get 5 views, and then the other one will get 5,000 views, and it's like, okay, well, do you want more of the 5,000 or the 5? It's like a mind meld trying to work out what to do.
So the activity stuff, the activity streams we do, we've got 30 verbs within the system: play, follow, share, comment, etc. And we built a gamification engine behind those verbs. So each verb has a point system behind it. And so what we can identify is who played your episode, how long did they play it for, what on average is your listening time, where do most people drop off, who's the most listened to. So we can identify your super fans. And with a micropayment wallet-to-wallet system, what we built was the idea that your fans can pay you, but actually you can put a marketing budget and pay some of your fans back. So it's a two-way peer-to-peer system. And so by that auto-identification of the user, where they're not having to do any work themselves, just they actually interact with your content, you can identify. So again, it might be right. So I've identified my top 10 super fans. Right, I'm going to give them first dibs on tickets to my live event, and I'm going to give them a 10% discount because they're my super fans. Or I've got a brand new podcast out. It's got a trailer. You know what? I'm going to pay you to listen to my 3-minute trailer. So I'm going to give you 100 sats per minute or 1p a minute as a reward. And guess what? Comes from my wallet to yours. So it's peer-to-peer, and you listen to it. And I put a little budget, so I'm not going to blow my bank account. So I might put 10,000 sats in my wallet as a marketing budget to allow people to listen to my trailer. And then through word of mouth, they will tell their friends, who then listen to it, and it's consumed as per normal.
It's like an onward share kind of thing. Yeah,
it's just a marketing budget, but in a different model, right? Instead of sticking out an ad, you're actually paying the fan directly. Now, one of the things we've built and we've demoed, and it'll be out very shortly, is our new advertising platform. And you go, well, God, not another advertising platform. So advertising today is the emperor's new clothes. It's a complete lie. The advertiser is given stupid metrics like, download numbers, or, they're told things that, yes, I'm sure your ad was heard. Well, can you tell me for certain who listened to my ad and how long they listened? No. We haven't got any of that stuff. What do you mean? So I don't know where they listened to, how long they listened to the ad, or even if they listened to it and just skipped it, because that's the dirty secret of podcasting. When the ad comes on, most people just skip past it. And so there's no incentive for the listener to actually interact with the ad. Now, we built a thing called wallet switching, which we did for Adam Curry. It's the idea of being able to do a radio show with music. So the idea is that I'm listening to this radio show, and let's say it's you, Andrew, you're talking. So the money from my wallet's going to you because you're the talking person, but then you play a music track, and now we switch the monies that I'm streaming to you to the artist. But when the music finishes, the money streams back to you. Now,
it's like a paying out a royalty, basically.
Yeah, and it's that real time. You don't have to do anything. We can do a per second tracking of the audio. So that works. So then we took the concept of, well, couldn't we extend that to advertising? So the advertiser can have a budget. Now I'm listening to Andrew Turner's G&T. There's an advert in it. So I've been streaming sats to you because I want to support you. I'm a fan of the show. But suddenly the ad comes on. Now I'm not paying the advertiser. But actually, what if the advertiser paid me to listen? So now I'm getting money in my wallet from the advertiser, but because it's digital money, we can split the value together. So you might take 80% of the money and give 20% to your fans. What's the value in that? Well, now the advertiser knows, A, Sam listened to the ad because I was paying him, but B, he knows when I dropped off, because the minute I skip forward, he stops paying me. So suddenly the advertiser knows exactly who listened, how long they listened, and what point they dropped off.
Yeah, and you've got some forensic analytics around that, haven't you?
Yeah. And it's real time, and we can do it, and it works really well. And so micropayments might sound uber geeky and a little bit complex today. And oh my God, what's a wallet and what's a micropayment? And what are they called again? SATs. Oh my God, I'm never going to get this. But actually, once you get over the creepy line and the technology hurdle, like we did with HTTP and URLs, then they make logical sense because the creator wants that interactivity and monetization. The advertiser gets data. Everyone wins in this model, and it's just, it's going to take a little bit more time.
I agree. It's a great idea because it's also, the way that this thing about continuous payment. Yeah, we have this kind of batch BS, right? Oh, you get paid at the end of the month, and you've got to run the payroll and blah blah blah. But actually, if you had proper infrastructure in place, then more modern infrastructure, you could actually then continually pay people as they add value to your business.
Yeah, well, Joe Budden just announced.
Payments,
well, Joe Budden announced that he's making $1 million a month on Patreon, right? And it was not, oh yeah, really, fake it until you make it. No, these were reports in the Wall Street Journal, and they showed the numbers, right? And okay, he's at the top of the tree making that sort of money, but that's capable for other people. And I think what we're moving to, and this is the really interesting thing about advertising, is going to have a big problem in the future unless they start to incentivize people. Most people will, if you ask them if they can do it and reach their phones, will skip the ad. So we know that. But Maya Prohofnik, who is head of podcasting at Spotify, was talking to James Cridland, my co-host on Podnews, about how they were going to be incentivizing creators with a percentage of the subscription money that was generated on Spotify to listeners. So I listen to a G&T on Spotify, and you've got a video. Part of my subscription to Spotify will go to you, Andrew, and not from an advert. So it's ad-free. And so the only way to pay you and incentivize you was to take money from my subscription. So James said, well, okay, if people who can afford a subscription don't see ads, then what are advertisers reaching? What demographic? Are they reaching the CDE ones, those who can't afford to pay a subscription? So I don't see ads anymore. I've got ad blockers. I pay YouTube. I pay Spotify. Pay Netflix. So I don't see ads. I have no idea who's advertising to me because I never see them, right? It's all blocked out.
You got the vanilla version. Yeah, okay.
And this is the problem advertisers have right now. They're paying a fortune to be included in podcasts. They can't get the metrics back of whether anyone actually listened to it. And actually, the people who are listening to it are actually outside the demographic they really want, which is the ABC ones, who strangely can afford not to see the ads or pay not to see the ads. So you suddenly got a real problem for advertisers. And we're seeing the likes of Patreon make $100 million profit last year, $8 billion in revenue. I mean, the numbers going to digital paid content is now through the roof. And so I think advertisers, unless they switch to a model in which the person they actually want to reach, the actual fan, the listener, is incentivized for their time and attention, then they're going to skip past the ads or not even listen to the ads because they're going to block them out. So the advertisers have got to switch their whole model to a model of incentivization around my time and attention. And if they don't do that with micropayments, I think they're screwed.
But who are they paying today then? So think about this. Who are they actually paying today?
They're paying the ad agencies. They're paying,
of course they are.
The hosts. They're paying, some of that money is going down to creators, but the actual people they want to reach are not getting incentivized at all.
So yeah. So it's a bit like it's an investor grow issue, isn't it? Because like they're investing in the wrong stakeholder.
Yeah, but they were gatekeepers.
They're part of the value chain. I mean, when you were talking, then I was thinking about Alice in Wonderland with like going down the corridor with all the doors and opening and having brick wall.
Exactly.
It's a bit like that, isn't it?
But it goes back to my comment about gatekeepers, right? So radio stations, TV stations were the gatekeepers. So the ad agencies would go to them, who would then broadcast the advertising, and they would take all the money. And that's the problem. The money was being kept by the gatekeepers and not shared to the end users. I mean, Facebook did exactly the same model where they took all of the time and attention we gave them, the upload of content, and they monetized against our content but gave us none of the value back. Andrew, you're muted in case you're wondering, and you've gone off video.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Completely. And so what we're seeing is the technology stack is having to be redone slightly in order to enable this. So centralized payments, centralized content, centralized aggregation of users is now being decentralized. So small communities, campfires, as you called them, direct peer-to-peer payments, direct fan to payments. There's a brilliant blog post by a guy called Kevin Kelly, written many, many years ago, called 1000 True Fans.
Yeah, the 1000. Yeah, exactly. It's a very famous one. Yeah.
That is what we're building, right? The reason why my platform is called TrueFans was from that blog post, right? 1000 True Fans.
Oh, really? That's fantastic.
Yeah. So the whole idea is that actually each podcaster within TrueFans can create their own podcaster creator portal around their community. They can identify their super fans. They can get paid by their fans directly. They can pay their fans or incentivize their fans. There's no advertising in that model at the moment. And we will bring advertising back in when I believe that the fan gets paid and rewarded as much as the creator. But that's
because it's like a P&L, isn't it? If you think about it, you're investing time and effort to effectively trigger a sale, right? So the cost of sale effectively is going to the wrong. No, I'm not saying the wrong, but it's going to different stakeholders, and not all the stakeholders that can actually influence the sale in the first place.
The purchaser.
Yeah, the purchaser. Yeah, there's no. It's like it's assumed that these other third parties will actually, I suppose, should take the lion's share or 100% of the cost of sale.
That was natural because there was no way to reach the individual TV watcher or the individual radio listener. There was no interactivity. There was no closed loop value circle, right? So the value exchange was, we will broadcast to you on the hope that you will hear the brand, you will hear the incentive, the advert, and then you would go out and make a purchase. But there was no trigger between people watching an ad and actually making a purchase. So then you go.
No, there's no technical capability to trace it at the individual level. That's what you're saying.
No.
Right.
And so if you could imagine smart TVs that had some form of interactivity where you could say, right, rather than this made up number that Raja does, Raja is a sampled pool extrapolated into a larger number. So 8 people watched the football. 2 million people watched the football last night. No, they didn't. We don't know that. That's just a made up number based on your sampling.
Yeah.
Right? Which is fine, but that's the way it works. So you have to change the model. And that's why I think Web 3.0 with micropayments and wallets and peer-to-peer communications and peer-to-peer payments and two-way interactivity. That's the future. We're just not there yet fully.
Which bits are missing then?
All the components are there. It's the knowledge. It's jumping the shark into mass market adoption.
It's the knowledge. I was going to say it's the knowledge and adoption, and it's to get like a critical mass of creators that just switch.
Yeah, and it's just changing people's. So we're seeing some real change. So as I said, the first big change is that we're seeing a decline in advertising within podcasting. That's just been metriced by Nielsen, by Edison Research, by numerous others. We've never gone beyond the $2 billion advertising promise that was meant to be, by 2028, we'll be a $20 billion advertising business. Never happened. Not going to happen because the money now is moving into paywall-based subscription. So Apple's subscription model is working really well. Goalhanger released their numbers. They're making, tons of money through Apple subscription. As I said, patrons making $8 billion revenue, $100 million. So they're taking 5% of all transactions through their platform. So people are beginning to realize that quality digital content has value and therefore you need to pay for it. What podcasting was what I used to call the second-class citizen of digital content. We in the days of Napster would not pay for music, but then when we realized $14.99, 4 million tracks, screw it, I can't be bothered to wait for the download, right? And finding the free stuff which had an awful UI. So Spotify came out, Apple came out, etc., etc. Steve Jobs famously with the 9p track. So once we make the technology accessible and easy and affordable, then people will jump on board to it. And again, we are seeing the transition now to the thinking that quality content now needs to be paid. And the next thing will be, well, how can I pay it not on an $8 a month subscription? So one of the problems with Patreon is I could pay you $8, $10 a month to be a subscriber to the G&T. And then Andrew goes, well,
You mean you've not done that already?
Well, you tell me your Patreon account and I'll be on it like a ferret up a pipe. But the reality is, you could then turn around and have 1,000 people doing that, like Kevin Kelly said. But you then suddenly go, I'm off to the Caribbean for 3 months and I'm not going to produce any more content. But you'll still get my $10 every month. Now, that's not fair. The value exchange is not there, right? You're not creating value, and I'm still giving you value in forms of a monetary value.
Yeah, but I'll be on that cruise with Michael.
Yeah, but that's fine. In the hot tub with your little mankini on. But the reality
my
is...
Borat mankini.
Yeah. The reality is that, again, going back to TrueFans, what we've done is we create a model which says, yes, I can subscribe to G&T, but if G&T deliver no new episodes, my $10 doesn't get diminished. I don't make that payment, right? So if you create value, I will give you value back. And that's why I call TrueFans a value exchange, as opposed to Patreon, which the subscription will just keep rolling even if you don't get value.
Yeah, it's not just value exchange, it's continuous value exchange, isn't it?
Yeah,
so,
it is. Yeah.
So just a quick question on the Apple subscription. What you're saying is that kind of Apple have inserted themselves as the middleman effectively between the consumer and the app or the service, because they create this massive payments business effectively, haven't they?
Yeah, and they take their 30% as well, like they do with Apple Pay.
So are you saying that that's kind of, so that it's kind of like this micropayment stuff is kind of like an anti, I won't say an anti, but it's kind of like a different path to what that kind of payment control and payment domination centralized approach to it, isn't it, really? It's
yeah, Apple Pay, look, they lost the court case.
Apple Pay like a bank, basically. Apple are like a bank.
Yeah, I mean, Apple lost the court case, which meant that Spotify could now put a link. I mean, look, the craziness was Spotify had an iOS app, but in that iOS app, they could not say, click this link to go to this website to make a payment for this audiobook. Apple would have banned them from the App Store. So Apple lost the court case that said that you can't include an external payment mechanism within your app. And so suddenly when they lost that court case...
They'd actually controlled that. They said you can't go outside the app.
100%.
Why? What, just to control the funds flow?
Because they couldn't get their 30%.
Wow.
Yeah. So if you had an app that said, pay me for the subscription, and I click Apple Pay, you're paying Apple 30%. Happy days for Apple. But if you have a link that says, click here and go and pay it on PayPal, now I'm only paying 3%, and I'm keeping the rest as the creator, Apple's getting 0. Apple's going, no, Andrew, you're not putting that link in our app. Fail, out the App Store, blocked. So this Apple tax that was being applied, they lost the court case. And on the back of that, we're seeing now more and more apps resubmitting and successfully resubmitting their app with links external to another payment mechanism. And so, I think what you'll see is eventually...
When was that litigation? When did that go through? Is it last year?
Well, it started a couple of years ago. It's one of the gaming platforms started it. My brain's died for a second. One of the gaming platforms started it, and, being Apple, they had deeper pockets than anybody else. So the case went on for a couple of years. Then the judge basically made a ruling that said, Apple, no, you need to allow people to have third-party payments. Apple then dragged their heels. If you remember, the EU had something similar. And so Apple said, okay, well, we'll have alternative app stores would be available, but Apple would still take 27%, not 30%. So that was their compromise. And of course, the courts then came back and said, no, that wasn't in the spirit of the judgment. And so Apple then capitulated. And on the back of that, you're beginning to see now more and more apps. So look, Apple had a monopoly with the Apple Pay. If you wanted to be in the iOS App Store, you gave Apple 30% of any revenue generated, right? That's not true anymore.
I knew about that because obviously my mobile background and being interested in the tech industry generally, but I didn't know that they actually blocked an external link and then your submission into the App Store was failed. I mean, it's just like, my God.
Yeah, well, Spotify was the one that was the biggest instigator of getting the EU to make this ruling against Apple. Of course, we're now seeing Donald Trump fighting for Facebook and Apple and others now saying you can't do this, you can't do that. I mean, Canada just capitulated on a digital tax on those platforms because Donald Trump said, I'll stick a tariff. So, look, it's all very messy. And which is why I say peer-to-peer based micropayments is going to be the way forward. We're seeing things like stable coins now becoming much more commonly adopted by Stripe, by PayPal. Now, look, people don't understand what stable coins are. People don't understand what sats are right now. It's all a bit messy, right? But they will. And what it means is that you'll be able to transact not only in a fiat currency, dollars, pounds, euros, but you'll be able to transact in stable coins. You'll be able to transact and convert those into Bitcoins, in micropayments, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's just going to become second nature, but it's probably a couple of years away yet.
So I'm just wondering, we're going to get a true coin, or we're going to get a Sethi coin or a Sam coin?
We did. So, okay. As I said, complexity is fell simplicity. The way to get a wallet today is to go to somebody like Strike with a K in the US or another wallet provider like that. And then you have to do KYC, know your customer. So Fountain, which is one of my competitors, but also one of my friends, Oscar, basically has the challenge where you join Fountain and you want a wallet. They say, okay, get a Strike wallet. You go and get a Strike wallet. And the first thing Strike does is give you a quiz. Do you understand what Bitcoin is? And if you fail their quiz, you can't even start the process of KYC. So that's a barrier to entry. Then you do KYC. Then you have to wait for approval. Then you get a wallet. Then you've got to do something else in Fountain called Nostr, and I won't go into that. So the barriers to entry of understanding how to make a small micropayment transaction to a podcast creator on Fountain is so high that actually people don't do it unless you're an uber geek.
You got to have like a PhD in computer science, basically.
Yeah, well, my wife used to run MSN UK, and I said to Jill, go on Fountain and set up an account. She walked away after about 30 seconds. Screw this. I just want to listen to a podcast. Why am I doing this, and this? And so what we do on TrueFans is we give you a wallet before you don't even have to do KYC because it's a TrueFans wallet and we control it. We put some funny money into it based on you completing onboarding tasks. So you've got some stuff in there. You
got some gamification you put in.
Yeah. And then like peeling an onion, we don't throw you on day one, right now, make a payment to Andrew, No, it's like Andrew might reveal some payments, or we might tell you in the help thing. And you can give value back to Andrew. How do I do that? Well, you've now got a wallet. Here it is. And it's got some stuff in it. How do I top my wallet up? Well, one-click Apple Pay because we use Stripe. So put $10 in and we'll put that as sats. Oh, okay. But I don't want to transact in sats. Okay. Click that button and we'll show you it in your local currency. Under the hood, we will hide the complexity and do all of the micropayments. But you don't need to understand that. And that works really well. So people are transacting in what they think is a fiat currency in their local currency, but actually they're transacting in sats through the wallet, but they don't need to know that that's what they're doing. Just as you don't need to know that your email's going through IMAP4 or POP3 or your DNS is how it works with the CNAME. All of that should be hidden.
Is it a Bitcoin wallet?
Yeah. TrueFans is a Bitcoin wallet. And at one point we did to answer your question of calling it TrueFans tokens, right? Just to get away from sats and micropayments. Or are you just going to call it TrueFans tokens? Because people understand what a token is. You go to a fairground, you convert your fiat currency into a token, go on the Dodgems, go on the big wheel, and that works, right? So if you can give people an understanding in terminology that they understand, then it becomes less scary. So we did consider it, but we haven't gone that far yet.
No, I think it's fantastic. I mean, I think are you about to launch something around hosting as well?
Yeah. So
or is that kind of like still under wraps?
No. I mean, I've talked about it publicly.
I've just blown your cover now.
Thanks, Andrew.
Grand reveal. Here we are, Thursday afternoon.
No, we are imminent. So one of my frustrations is as a app, not as a host, is that the hosts are not evolving fast enough. So Hosts missed the whole video capability, and that's been pretty much now YouTube and Spotify own that market. Weirdly, there was a technology called HLS, Hypertext Live Services, and that's designed by Apple, but Apple don't use it. So Apple has no video. They used to have video. They don't have it in Apple Podcasts. I mean, you can watch video if you know what you're looking for.
So you mean the traditional thing where podcasts are usually viewed as like audio only? Is that what you're saying? Okay,
yeah, but now a lot of podcasters consider audio and video as a means. It's still a podcast.
Well, I started purely on YouTube. I was just purely doing episodes on YouTube, and then I actually switched back to audio.
Yeah, but if you took your RSS feed and then you published that to YouTube, that's still a podcast as opposed to a YouTube video if you just did it natively on YouTube. So the thing about it is, I was asking hosts, look, when are you going to support video? When are you going to support live podcasting? Yeah, well, we'll get round to it, kind of. Well, the technology's there. Can you do it? And we're not sure. So I went, you know what? Actually, hosting is a commodity now. If you look at the technology escalator, 10 years ago, hosting was, the top of the technology tree. But now it's like, easy and cheap as chips to do. So one of the things that we have been testing is converting MP3s and MP4s to HLS. And you go, why would you do that? So again, sorry to be a bit long-winded, but if you loop back, the bandwidth to download a podcast was basically very limited, right? 3G, 4G. So we had the download in podcasting as a means of overnight downloading your favorite shows. So when you go on the dog walk or you go to the gym, your podcast was ready to listen to, right? Otherwise, you'd be waiting 6 hours for it to download. So that was where that metric was very useful. And that's why people measured on downloads. But we've evolved. We've now got 4G, 5G, fast networks, Wi-Fi, whatever. So a download doesn't make sense. The problem you've got is when you download an MP3, 100 meg file, right? It's not too bad. But if you download a video, that could be 1 gig, it could be 2 gig, it could be even more, right? So hosts are going, we can't charge $12.99 or even $20.99 and then download a 1 gig file 100 times and make a profit. It's just not feasible. So HLS is a streaming technology rather than a download technology. What it allows you to do is say, right, I'm going to start Andrew's video. It starts straight away. Why? Because it's got a 6-second packet. They're delivered in packets. And so as a user, the experience
You've got a bit of buffer, basically.
Yeah. So the user experience is fundamentally, it's still a download in a traditional sense, but it's 6-second downloads rather than one big download. And so you are getting it as a stream. So I'm watching the video, 6 seconds, 6 seconds, 6 seconds. But I get into 10 minutes and I go, no, this isn't for me. And I drop off. So now I've only delivered 10 minutes worth of digital content rather than 1 hour. So economically, it means that we can compete with the likes of a YouTube or a Spotify because we're not having to deliver 1 gig, 2 gig downloads. We can deliver 300 meg downloads, right? Which are more affordable and economical as well as deliverable. So we've implemented HLS. We've implemented a new pricing scheme. We've created a 2-click switching capability. So you can now go into your podcast, claim it on TrueFans, click switch, and we'll do all the work in the background for you. Let you know and you're done. It's literally 2 clicks. So we're putting our price.
You mean to switch from, an unnamed podcast hosting that may be hosting the G&T Sessions today.
Yeah. And then what we do is we auto convert your content to HLS for you. And so that so the nice thing about HLS as well, auto understands the bandwidth of the listener or the watcher. So you might have a 4K version, you might have a 320K version, you might have a 720, right? But what happens is the app automatically works out the bandwidth of the listener and delivers that version of the content. So delivering a 4K over a dial-up connection would be crazy. But conversely, giving them a 320 over a 100 megabit per second fiber connection would be stupid as well. So HLS has the ability to auto work out the bandwidth of the deliverable and give you the highest quality version. So there's lots of advantages to it over traditional MP3, MP4. And so I guess what I'm saying is podcasting 1.0 was a download metric MP3, MP4 model. We're now moving to a listen time, percent completed value paid model with a streaming capability. So again, there's so much going on under the hood that's changing.
Mm.
And then when you add micropayments and everything else on top of that, and the identification of superfans and community, it's really exciting.
Yeah, no, it's cool. It's cool. I mean, it's actually the end of the month as well, so even better time to switch.
We're about 30 days away from deliverable.
Okay, then. Well, I'm just giving you notice.
Good.
Yeah, I don't know if actually my podcasting host listens to my show, but
They better do now.
that's great. That's great because I think that the thing is also that whole. Because I use Substack as well. I've been writing on Substack for about 7 months now. 3 different publications I'm doing on that as well, and I've imported my podcast into there as well. But I was part of a writing group, so I've been part of a writing group for a while. The funny thing is that people were kind of moving off Medium, right? Because they felt the demise of Medium, the demise of all these, the demise of all these different platforms. So what you just said is absolutely spot on. But then everybody who's been talking about the Substack recently is Substack going to morph into something else then that then becomes a demise as well? So how do you actually create your own digital campfire that you can control and manage and provide this multimedia experience for you as a creator and, reward your fans, do marketing campaigns, promote appropriate things that are congruent with what you want to offer as a brand? Absolutely, I can see where you've gone with your thinking. It's fantastic.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, on your podcast page, we will offer you events, blogging, merch, etc. And in the new hosting package, you will be able to put a customized domain. So it won't say TrueFans/G&T, it'll say gnt.com, for example, if you want it to. If
you can get the domain authority to actually allow ampersands in,
yes,
then that'd be fantastic.
That would be cool. The other part that's really okay, I'm going to reveal something that I've talked about once, but I don't mind because
Go on, don't be shy. You heard it here first on the G&T Sessions with Sam Sethi.
Well, you are actually, strangely, because we are, I think, about 2 weeks away from confirmation from ICANN of having the .podcast domain as a top-level domain that we own.
Oof.
Yes, so
you'll be
able to, with our hosting, we will give you 1 year's free .podcast domain ownership.
What, you'll own that and manage it?
Yeah.
Oh my God. That's amazing.
Thank you.
High 10, mate. High 10.
So yeah, it's taken a year and a half to get that. Yeah, it's been a while.
It's surprising it's not been already taken, though, isn't it?
Exactly.
And who controls that then? You said ICANN. Yeah?
ICANN, yeah. They control all of the domains.
Is that a government-controlled thing, or is it independent?
Yeah, it's a US-based, government-controlled. So yeah, all top-level domains are controlled through them. So, the .fm domain that's owned by a guy in Switzerland. .com he bought that. There are .radio, I'm pretty sure. And then, of course, countries own certain ones. AI's, I think, Anguilla. I think you've got Net was owned by the US government. So it was an ICANN.com.net were controlled. But the UK government owns .co.uk, but then there'll be other countries, other people who own subdomains, So yeah, so the goal for us is we'll provide podcasting, switching, live services, video, and the reason why was because the hosts weren't moving fast enough for us.
That is brilliant.
Thank you.
See, it's like, I want to be a fan of TrueFans going at this rate. You stop building so much value into your proposition. It's just ridiculous.
Yes.
You stop it. Stop it immediately. Stop it immediately,
We'll turn it all off for you. Don't worry. And charge you double.
I just want the basic service that has no analytics at all. I'm completely blind as a host. I have no idea what the hell's going on.
Yes. And I'll tell everyone I've got to download, but no one listened to it.
Yeah, but the funny thing is, some of the guests that I get that approach me to come on the show, and this is just a bit of coaching for them actually. They say, "How many downloads have you had? How many downloads do you get?" And I go, "It's about more than just the downloads, mate, or person, to be kind of phonetically connected." It's just like incredible. So needless to say, they don't appear on the show.
But that's the problem. I mean, it's the learning curve. Again, educating people about the changing world of first-party data, right? I mean, the good thing is Edison Research now has stopped using the number of downloads, and they're using the number of hours per week consumed. So I think in the US, it was 773 million hours of podcasting was consumed, listened to, right? And I think Raja has started to do the same now. So people are starting to use watch time as a metric. And so again, it's an education thing, but people will eventually ask you, instead of going, oh, Andrew, how many downloads? And they're going to go, Andrew, what was your average listen time for that show last week? How many people listened to it? And what was your average percent completed? Well, if you said, it was 100 hours and 50 people listened to it, and but only 10% was consumed and the rest of it was drop off. Well, it'd be like, okay, not great. If you then said it was 80% was consumed or 90% was consumed, right? And actually the value paid to me was, 12,000 sats as well, by the way. And as a guest, I'll put you in the splits. So, my God, this is great, right? So that's why I reinforce listen time, percent completed, value paid.
Yeah, it's also a good feedback loop for the host, for the creator, right? Because you're trying to identify, how to have great conversation with great people about great topics, right? And I just need to have you on every week, basically, and then it's going to drive my KPIs up into it. That's what I need to do. So you can do right, Sam. You need to do another exclusive grand reveal. No pressure. No, that's fantastic. No, thank you for coming on the show today, because I think it's been. I mean, obviously, we didn't dwell too much on your individual journey. I think you gave us an interesting background on your diversity of what you've been going through. But that's fantastic. I think it's a real winner is TrueFans.
Thank you.
I mean, I think it sounds. I mean, it is kind of a bit of I call it my therapy. My therapy basically, because it's like you're in this container with somebody. You've got to be active listening, and it's a very rewarding experience. I would advocate everybody should have their own podcast at some point.
I do. I agree with that. Everyone should be a radio presenter, right? Fundamentally, it's your show, right? I'm coming on your show as your guest, and it's how you then broadcast that out. So if you want to do live broadcasting, or you want to do on-demand broadcasting, or you want to do audio broadcasting or video broadcasting, it's your call, but it's your show.
So Libsyn, and Captivate and all you guys out there, you're going to have to watch TrueFans is coming to motor past you. You're going to be in the outside lane.
I mean, look, there's a big, look, the big behemoths in the market are the big three, YouTube, Spotify, and Apple. They could kill all of us tomorrow, right? I'll give you an example. Apple could make Apple Pay a micropayment system and not charge fees. Boom. Job done.
Yeah.
Spotify could do something in that space if they wanted to. Apple could become a host, right? Apple subscriptions are different to RSS. So if you're on Captivate and you put your podcast into the Apple directory, that's delivered by RSS. But if you want to put your premium podcast into Apple subscriptions, you have to upload to Apple. So Apple is actually a host without saying they're a host, because that premium subscription content is hosted on Apple, not on Captivate. And equally, the same with Patreon. Patreon is a host because it's fundamentally taking your premium content and then providing a private feed back to the user who's bought the content to upload into another app. But they're hosting that private feed. So they're a host. And so hosts need to get into premium paid content, and they need to do it smart. We haven't talked about it, but there is a new technology called Secure RSS, which we created, me and a guy in Australia called Russell Harrower. And between the pair of us, we came up. So here's the big problem with RSS. RSS is called open RSS, right? So if I wanted to, let's say you had a user interface on a website that said, to listen to the G&T is a £10 a month subscription. I go, great, thanks, Andrew. Now, if I'm non-technical, I just pay you it because I don't know how to get to it. But if I'm technical, I go and find your RSS feed, I find the enclosure file, and I just copy and paste the MP3 for free. It's unencrypted. Or I go and copy and paste the MP4. Even private feeds, the ones that Patreon and Apple provide, if I have that private feed, let's say you've got that private feed and you paid for it once, but you share it to me, there's no way of them blocking it. And now that private feed's in the wild. So what they do is they have a no index Google search function, so it's not indexed, right?
Okay.
But fundamentally, it's an open feed. It's not encrypted. So we created a encrypted feature that goes into your existing RSS feed. So you have a primary enclosure that might be open for freemium content, but you might want one episode to be premium.
You're like a walled garden. Yeah.
Yeah, it's and so the actual tag is called podcast paywall, but and apps like mine and others can then read that tag and say, oh, this content's enclosure, audio or video, is a paid premium content. Oh, okay. So we put the price up and we show you that price. Now, if the user pays it, we then actually release the content. But if you're a technical person, you think, oh, I'm going to go to the RSS feeding. You can't. It's encrypted. It's totally encrypted. So you just get garbage. So there's no way around it. What we've done is fundamentally created one RSS feed for both freemium and premium, rather than split it between your Captivate host and your Patreon host or your Apple subscription host.
Yeah.
So
you think, I mean, what I like about what you're doing is you think through the customer experience, you're thinking, how do you keep it simple?
Yeah. And so remember, the customer now sees a price, they can click on it, they've got a wallet already, and all that is just simple. It means that one of two things will happen. Patreon will either come and compete and become a fully fledged listening app, which they're not today, or they are face the innovator's dilemma where they don't evolve because they've got so much money they won't change the model, but one day they'll wake up and the market's gone.
Yeah. Stuck in the middle. Wow. Okay, so to finish off, if people are interested, obviously people, founders of different companies listen to this show, and great episode.
Thank you.
So how do people find out more about about you and what you're working on? What's the best way of finding that information?
Two or three places. So if you can go to TrueFans.fm on the web, you can go to the app stores and find us, download it, play with it, try it. Claim your podcast if you have one. That's step one. And then when we release the hosting stuff in the next couple of weeks, you'll get information if you've claimed your podcast. If you want to find what else I do a podcast with James Cridland called Podnews Weekly Review. And outside of that, I've got a couple of other little podcasts I do. One's called Creators, which is about highlighting independent podcast creators. And then if you want to learn about how you can listen to a podcast and your time and attention has value, on TrueFans, we have a podcast called Fan Zone, where when you listen, we pay you to listen. Right. And the idea is to teach you and show you and eat our own dog food. I want you to learn about TrueFans, listen to Fan Zone, where we explain how it works. And for your time and attention, we will put money into your TrueFans wallet.
And that's like a sub proposition below TrueFans, Fan Zone.
You just find it as a podcast in TrueFans. It's called Fan Zone.
And is that like your kind of education training? Kind of. Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Okay,
and we think if you're going to give us the time and attention to listen to what we do and how our platform works, we should reward you. You're not going to go home and pay the mortgage, but you're going to have a few pennies in your bank account, or in your wallet that you can then use later to pay your favorite podcaster. So, it's a virtuous circle.
It's a kind of cyclic economy kind of thing you do, isn't it? Fantastic. Well, I've learned a lot today. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you, Andrew.
Having me as a guest. And that's a big statement coming from me. And I'm joking. No. I think it's interesting because of your technical background and the stuff you've done in marketing, and then the stuff that you've done with the different businesses. It's a fascinating journey you've had, and I wish you all the success with TrueFans. I'm a fan already, and we're definitely going to be talking soon about some other activities. But no, it's a real coup as well to pull off that top level domain.
Yeah,
it's iconic. That's amazing.
Well, it's not in the bank, so it may still not happen. We're 2 weeks away from hopefully confirmation.
Oh, do you want to publish this episode? Do you want to publish this episode at the end of September?
No, because if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. I'm not going to lose sleep over it. We've been working on it for 1.5 years. If someone tomorrow is listening to this and thinks that they can go and hijack it off me, go for it. I'm not going to worry about it. They've got 1.5 years of what I've had to go through. So good luck to them. If it's not to be, it's not going to make or break my business. It's a nice idea. It's a service of, but That
was a true King Leonidas Spartan answer. That was. I like that. Aru.
Exactly.
Okay, that's been Sam Sethi, multi award winning entrepreneur, radio host, podcast host, and all round cool dude.
Thank you. That's
So
very
thanks for
kind.
coming on the show, my son. And
No worries.
let's catch up soon. That was Andrew
Indeed.
Senna, founder and host of the G&T Sessions podcast, soon to be powered by TrueFans.
Thank you so much. We'll onboard you very quickly. I promise you.
Ciao for now.
Thanks, Andrew.